this young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, half of this cabinet, are actually young Nobel leaders of the world. So that we penetrate the cabinets.
The change is not just happening. The change can be shaped by us. We have to prepare for a more angry world. How to prepare? To take the necessary action to create a fairer world. I see the need for a great reset. So people assume we are just going back to the good old world which we had and everything will be normal again. This is, let's say, fiction. It will not happen.
There is only one way this pandemic is going to go. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Pay insufficient attention to the frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole. The COVID-19 crisis would be seen in this respect as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber attack.
What was your highest level of contact with the U.S. government in this period?
Я постоянно имел контакт с господином Байденом. Господин Байден говорил одно, а в Украине делали другое.
The horrible truth cannot be denied. The Biden administration is directly responsible for the war in Ukraine, gas prices, food shortages, and inflation.
Questions of credibility are being raised after a private chat between two top U.S. diplomats was leaked online.
I think Yats is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay. Good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him as the next step?
Sullivan's come back to me, VFR, saying you need Biden, and I said probably tomorrow for an attaboy and to get the deets to stick. So okay. Biden's willing.
So you had this remarkable phone call where you have these two senior officials of the U.S. government apparently talking about a coup or how they were planning to restructure the government of Ukraine.
We're on track right now. I'm on track to be the first president in history to lower the deficit by over $1 trillion in 1 year. So I'm sick of this stuff. We have to talk about it because the American people think the reason for inflation is government spending more money. Simply not true.
Inflation is not created by COVID. It's not created by Putin. It's not created by greedy corporations gouging their customers. There's one source of inflation. The actual definition of inflation is an expansion of the money supply. And it's the Federal Reserve that's been expanding the money supply. They've called it quantitative easing, but they keep creating dollars, and it's the U.S. government that spends those dollars into circulation. And as it does that, the value of each dollar goes down, and so the price of everything that you buy with dollars goes up. And they're saying 7.9%, which is the worst inflation since 1982. What they don't tell you is that we had a different CPI in 1982. And if we use the same CPI today that we used then, we would be over 15% inflation, which means 2021 or 2022 right now, this is the worst inflation in our lifetimes. We're experiencing higher inflation now than anything during the 1970s. And this decade is just getting started. Inflation's got only one way to go, and that's up.
Tax. That's really Putin's gas hike. That's his gas hike. So much of this increase in the gas tax, gas price started.
Biden's economic wrecking ball was recently aided by the decimation of small businesses overwhelmed by the tycoons of the pandemic economy.
Who got the money from the Paycheck Protection Program? You know, this is our $800 billion. That's kind of a lot, okay, that we gave out. Mm-hmm. Only about a quarter of the money spent by the program paid wages that would have otherwise been lost. So 3/4 of it didn't do, of $800 billion, And then 72% of the relief money ended up in the hands of people with incomes, household incomes, in the top 20%. All that money end up to people who are in the top 20%?
Driving a final stake into the heart of the middle-class economy, as 7 in 10 Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, while over half of Americans don't have 3 months in emergency savings. As food producers continue to minimize their products, airlines are scaling back on flights, truckers add more fuel surcharges, Bidenflation destroys the recovery following the pandemic as the war on fossil fuels continues to ripple through an engineered depression, with the endgame ushering in the Great Reset, where you will own nothing and be happy.
The radical left is fighting to abolish American energy, destroy the oil and gas industries, and wipe out your jobs. Would ban oil and gas leasing on all federal land. If these far-left politicians ever get into power, they will demolish not only your industry, but the entire U.S. economy.
Would he close down the oil industry?
It falls.
Would you close down the oil industry? By the way, I would transition from the oil industry, yes.
Oh,
I would
that's
transition.
a big statement.
The oil industry pollutes significantly.
I see.
Here's the deal, because it has to be replaced by renewable energy over time. And I'd stop giving to the oil industry, I'd stop giving them federal subsidies.
That's maybe the biggest statement in terms of business, because basically what he's saying is he is going to destroy the oil industry.
It's going to go up. Can't do much right now. Russia's responsible.
President Biden saying don't blame him for the record high cost of gas, which is now $4.25 a gallon.
I can't afford to go to the grocery store anymore. I can't afford food anymore. Usually after work on a Friday, I go down to Chili's and get a cold beer, maybe a 2 for $20. But now with gas prices being the way they are, I can't even afford that.
It's crazy. I have 2 cars, so it's killing me.
Fuel prices have hit an all-time high, and on the 1st of April, the cap on what the energy providers can charge their customers will be lifted. I've already got a text telling me that the cost of warming my family will more than double in just 2 weeks. The whole situation in Eastern Europe, despite curing the Rona, feels distinctly connected to it. The West has been battered and bruised by restrictions over the last 2 years. Many have been pushed into poverty. Many businesses have gone under. A large chunk of those businesses that have survived have cut staff numbers or cut hours, dropped bonuses, etc. And now, while the people are on their knees but desperately trying to build a foundation so they can rise again, this happens, and life becomes even more unaffordable. To offer the solution, you need to create the problem. Now, the solution is the reset, but for people to accept the reset, you must first destroy their lives, what they consider to be their normal. In their desperation to survive, they'll be willing to try anything, and you just happen to have the answer. Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Well, I don't think Klaus agrees, Buck. He's got the people to destroy their existing reality themselves. In this case, for many people, there's always been a tough decision to make. Do I heat myself or do I feed myself? Doing both isn't an option. Well, if the demons get their way, at least that choice doesn't need to be made anymore, because you won't be able to afford to do either. So, every cloud.
Now we're just seeing the beginning of the results. This isn't the end. We're going to see much bigger increases in consumer prices in 2022 than we saw in 2021. And we're going to see probably even bigger increases in 2023. I mean, this is the tip of an iceberg. Well, prices are going up. I've been saying this for years. We've been underinvesting. And, the politicians have been trying to push us into this green direction prematurely. I mean, you have to let the free market dictate the type of energy that you're going to use. And if you're trying to force uneconomical forms of energy on the public, there are going to be ramifications. Now, certainly in the long run, humanity is not going to exist on fossil fuels forever, right? At some point, we won't use them at all. But I don't know when that point is. But I know that we're nowhere near it now. I know that the science and technology hasn't advanced to the point that we can move away from it. But at one point, all of our fuel was coming from whales, right? How would we get oil? We were harpooning whales, right? So, but we got oil and natural gas. We didn't have to do that anymore. So that was a big positive, I think. Most people don't want to go back to the days of whaling. to try to get light. But at some point, there's going to be more stuff in solar and wind, or who knows what they're going to do. But right now, oil and gas, coal, those type of fuels are still the most economical ways of generating the power that we need. And to the extent that we haven't been developing it as much as other countries, that is a problem, and the governments have created these barriers. And that the result of that is a lower standard of living. If we're going to go for the Green New Deal or anything like that, the public has to know that there's a huge cost associated with that. You can't just, they try to market it as if it's going to be great news. We're going to have this Green New Deal and everybody's going to be better off. No, everybody's going to be worse off. That's the trade-off. You want to go green, you're going to go poor because you're not going to have the standard of living that you have when we're not green. But the real problem is not going to be these prices going up as far as inflation is concerned. I mean, the big increase we're seeing in food and energy prices, this is going to cause a recession. This doesn't cause inflation, because as food prices go up, as energy prices go up, consumers have to spend more of their incomes on those necessities. They don't stop eating. They still need to heat their homes, electrify their homes. They need to drive. So money is going to be spent, at the supermarket, but that money can't be spent someplace else. And it's the reduction in other spending that ends up causing recession. Then, of course, the Federal Reserve responds to that by printing more money, and that's where the inflation comes from. Not from the isolated increase in certain prices, but from the fact that the Federal Reserve will end up compensating for that. In fact, in many cases, what happens is oil prices go up, food prices go up, and the Federal Reserve thinks, we need to print more money so people can afford to pay those higher prices. And so, but now that drives the prices even higher, because we don't need more money, we need more food, we need more energy. But the Federal Reserve doesn't create any of that, it just prints money.